Hi everyone, I'm Brenda Harvey, author of the Conspiracy series. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about your first chapter, how to write your first chapter so it grabs audience attention, because this is super important, which also means we are going to be dissecting my first book, The Conspiracy. So grab your copy of The Conspiracy, and if you don't have one, the link is in the description below, and let's get into the video. So why is your first chapter even important? Well, this might seem obvious and needs to hook your reader, but unfortunately a lot of times your first chapter fails at this. So what should your first chapter actually do? Well, mostly it should be introducing your character or characters, depending on how you want your story to go. Mostly I tend to focus on the main character just because of my writing style, which we will talk about later. Now, what we need is an introduction to our character's personality, as well as a little bit of the setting. For example, The Conspiracy takes place 2020-ish, around that time, and that becomes more apparent in the lead, but we aren't going to talk about that one right now. We are talking about the first chapter of The Conspiracy, where we get introduced to Iris's personality. Good, but don't over-practice, Sunny said, her voice smooth as butter. I'd never over-practice, I replied. Iris, we know you. Promise us you won't, Una pleaded. You're always singing, Avery pointed out. How she doesn't take crap from people. Do you have a phone? I asked. He nodded, looking confused. Then Google the definition of the word no, I said, continuing to walk down the hall. How she is focused on the martial arts. I had to remind the yellow belt 7 times not to use donut fists through their form. I glanced at the other volunteers helping the red belts. How she is musically inclined. Don't forget to be back here at 5:45 for the concert. We're the first on the program. And that she is interested in anthropology or bones. Someone told me the metacarpals are in the neck. I told Mom, which is definitely going to play an important part later on in the series. If you have read it, you would understand that. So with your first chapter, really this should be an introduction to who your characters are, what they do, kind of their entire vibe. Now, you can do this throughout a series of multiple chapters, but personally I like to get most of this in the first chapter because this is what's going to hook your reader. And if they don't like the first chapter, odds are they aren't going to listen to their second grade teacher who told them to read the first 3 chapters and then move on. Odds are if they don't like the first chapter or even the first page, they're just going to move on to another book or start scrolling through TikTok on their phone. So if you are going to be writing a book for entertainment, you need to hook your reader in your first chapter. Now, this also does apply into informational books, but I am not a specialist in this. The Conspiracy is fiction, and it is for entertainment purposes, not for education purposes, so I am not going to be speaking too much on that because I'm just not an expert in that. So if you want information on informational writing, find someone else, because I am just not as qualified as someone else would be to speak on that topic. The next thing I'm going to encourage you to do is try to start your action right away. So for me, that means the end of the first chapter. Personally, I hate books where it starts off super slow and you just get nothing done. So for me, a good rule that I tend to follow, start your action right away. So this is just a reminder that some parts of this is just my writing style. Now, I don't want you to copy my writing style because you have your own writing style, and copying mine is not going to be as fun for you, and it's going to be obvious for your readers. What you need to do, find your own style. Now, some of these things that I say, you definitely need to do, but a lot of them are also my writing style, so keep that in mind when you're analyzing your writing. You do not necessarily need to do everything I do in my writing. In fact, you shouldn't, because as an author, especially in this world where people are focused on TikTok, phones, and media like this, people aren't just straight up aren't reading books anymore. So if you want to be an author, you need to hook your reader and you need to have your own style. So don't copy mine, copy yours if you want to get your readers. So first chapter, introduce your character, vaguely introduce the setting, and then leave your ending on a cliffhanger. Then the world turned black. So your audience will want to come back. So when you are jumping into your action. Personally, I do it at the end of the first chapter. Not necessarily a big fight scene. In fact, I encourage you not to do a big fight scene in your first chapter because you don't want to smack your reader in the face with a big fight scene. That's not what they signed up for. Give them a cliffhanger, but nothing too dramatic. And another thing to remember is it is okay to be vague, especially in your first chapter, because you are going to explain all of those things at the end, hopefully. Now, I can talk about leaving some doors open for later exploration, but that is not what this video is about. If you would like to see that video, comment down below. But when you're starting your action, be careful about it. You don't want something big, dramatic. It could be a conversation. It could be a finding. It could be a kidnapping. Make it subtle enough that your reader needs to come back. Don't make it so big that's like, this is too intense for me, I want to leave. Because your reader isn't expecting you to do something big and intense in the first chapter. They're expecting you to kind of ease into the story. So you don't want something big and climax worthy in your first chapter, because if you have climax worthy action in the first chapter, well, your reader's going to get scared. What's going to happen after this? Is it going to get more gruesome? Is it going to just go crazy? You don't want to do that. You need to keep your reader in mind and what they are actually going to think about when you're writing. So these are some things that you don't necessarily need to think about in your first draft, but definitely by your final draft, you need to have some kind of action that isn't so intense that it's going to scare your reader off. Well, okay, all of that makes sense, but I've read the Chronicles of Narnia, and I've read all of those other older books, and they take forever to get started. So why should I listen to you if all of these classics are not? Well, simple answer, my friend. First of all, not all of those are classics. They might be old, but they're not classics. Second of all, C.S. Lewis was writing for an audience that had radio, and that's pretty much it. So today we have TikTok and we have YouTube, and short form content and attention spans are decreasing dramatically. So back in the 60s, when all you had was radio, your audience just had a longer attention span. So today, with our 50% attention spans, you need to hook your reader right away. Otherwise, they're just going to leave, and they want nothing to do with you because they're bored, and they're going to go on their phone and scroll through TikTok. And I know to all of you who are like, well, writing is a dying art anyway, so, like, we're not going to have books in 10 years. First of all, you're wrong. We will have books in 10 years because that's how people entertain themselves forever. Oh, and by the way, when your phone dies and your computer dies and you have a blackout and you can't do anything, what are you going to do? Come on. Let's be honest. Look at all those pretty entertaining books on the shelf. They're starting to look really appealing after 3 days of no power. Books are not going anywhere, even if you just read them in school because you have to. The reality is they might shift to ebook form, but they aren't going anywhere. So, yes, you should listen to me. And that is it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, make sure to like it down below and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. Remember to buy my 3 books, The Conspiracy, The Lead, and The Killers. Once again, we do talk about these a lot on this channel, and I don't want to give away spoilers, and you don't want me to give away spoilers either. So just make sure to buy my books. Links are in the description as well as my website. Make sure to check that out. And I will see you next Saturday with another video. Bye!